Hello and welcome to the Alpha Movement Podcast, and more specifically the Mindset RX series of the Alpha Movement Podcast. My name is Tom Foxley and I coach functional athletes on mindset. In short, I try and give them the champ's mindset, and this can take a variety of different approaches. As you can probably be more than aware, we are all different humans. We have different struggles, we have different challenges, we have different virtues, we have different lives, we have different factors that go into them, we have different regular external stimuli. So to say that we all need the same approach is crazy. And that's what I wanted to give you guys a side of today, a sight of. And I was going to give you basically a very short snippet of my life this week and the athletes that I've been dealing with and the athletes that I've been helping and some athletes that just shot into my peripheral and my thoughts on them. So the first one I'm going to talk about, I actually did a Facebook Live video about this the other day, but excuse me if that's noisy whilst I adjust my chair. The first thing I want to talk about was an athlete who got in touch with me through a friend's Facebook group, and the group essentially said, or the message essentially said, hey, I've been nailing my nutrition since, when was it? Since the beginning of January, let's say. I think he said around 3 weeks. I've been nailing it. I've been doing really well. I've lost, I think he said 2 kilos, which is really good. He'd been nailing it, but he, as he said, he fell face first into a shitload of food. And bless him, we've all been there, and personally I've been there. Isn't something I've really talked about much before, but I used to use food as a massive comfort. If I go back to the days when I had no money, and by no money I mean on government benefits and with a £25,000 loan, when I go back to those days and I just couldn't make head nor tail of anything and my training was going to shit and I had no self-belief, I used to use food to comfort me. Like one type of Ben Jerry, was a light meal for me, usually 2. And this would happen more often than it didn't. And so I, first of all, to this guy who messaged me or who wrote this post, more people had been there than you realize. But there's three things that really helped me in this, and I think they apply to most people. The first of these is to understand that we want progress, not perfection. And I've spoken about it before, but this guy's done 20 days of nailed nutrition. Like, fucking well done. Like 20 days. If you did 20 days on, 1 day off for the rest of your life, you'd be in incredible shape. Oh, fuck that. Just a second. Did 20 days off, 20 days on, 5 days off. You'd nail it and you'd be in incredible shape. So let's just look at progress over perfection. The second piece of this is to look at the minimum effective dose. And I speak about minimum effective dose plenty, but it's worth establishing. We all too often see what CrossFit Games athletes are doing and think we have to replicate it. Or we see what the best, let's use bodybuilding, the best bodybuilder in the world is doing and we think we have to replicate it. But the truth is, we need to find the smallest amount that benefits us and then maybe add some more if we feel comfortable with it. But find our minimum effective dose and stick to that. The last thing I wanted to say about this is, if I was going to say to you, here you go, there's this plane here, like you're going to tell I've got a weird search history on my Google. Here's a plane, I want you to eat it. By the way, people do eat planes. Here's a plane, I want you to eat it. Chances are you're going to feel a touch overwhelmed. But I was reading an article about a bloke who ate a plane the other day. A plane, and he did it one bite at a time, and that was his answer. Like, how did you eat a plane, like an actual metal plane? And his answer was 1 bite at a time, and he broke it down to the smallest possible pieces. So when we look at, the objective of having perfect nutrition, our impulse is to think, oh shit, I've got to do that for the next year, and I've got to lose, let's use the weight loss target because it's an easy one. I've got to put on, let's change that a bit. I've got to put on 10 kilos of lean muscle, and then we look at the scales and we realize that we put on 500 grams of lean muscle in 4 weeks. Like, oh shit. But we are comparing ourselves to the end goal. We're thinking we have to do it all at once. Whereas it's very obvious to realize that we've got to eat that plane one step at a time. So those are the 3 things that I'd recommend in this regard. The next step, or the next scenario that I want to talk about, is a little bit more morbid. An athlete who is under my tutelage at the moment. She's been doing the inner athlete performance camp. It's the last week of one of the inner athlete performance camps we've been doing, and I'm not going to give over very personal details, but she had a significant health scare, and I've never seen anyone react so well. And this, I'd love to say this was my doings and like it was my teachings and mindset, but the truth is she applied what I'd taught and a whole lot more than what I taught, and she managed to keep perspective. She said things like, I will defeat this and I will survive, and that in itself was beautiful. She didn't stray into the territory of I'm not going to let this hurt me, which is obviously focusing on the negative there. But she moved forwards beautifully, and she was always in good spirits, and thankfully it's turning out to be not as serious as we first thought it could be. But if she's listening as well, hats off, because she's absolutely nailed her approach to this. And yeah, I'm very impressed. But the fact that what we learn in the CrossFit gym or the box has transfers over to everything else we do, I think that's beautiful. And I think that's yet another reason to start working on your mindset. The third kind of case that I'd like to talk about today is I had an athlete in the same inner athlete performance camp actually. And his initial approach, and there's a couple of people I'm working with right now on this. We're like, okay, I've got the European Championships in, when was it? It's in a week or so from when I'm recording this podcast. So it's like at the end of this inner athlete performance camp, I have the European Championships. What can I do? What can I add to my training? Tell me about these techniques. You've spoken about the arch on podcasts. You've spoken about the arch on blogs. Tell me how to implement this. Tell me how to master my language. Give me the tools and tactics to add on to what I've already got to help me perform my best. And I completely understand the sentiment there. Like I've been there before, but the issue is, unless we work on the foundational basis of mindset, those tools are worthless, because we're going to kick back against them. We're going to fall into the same old habits. If self-belief is an issue, we are going to start self-flagellating and then get discouraged in those beliefs. If we don't do very well, then we're going to become self-critical. If we don't implement them right, there's a whole bunch of issues here. But unless we form a foundation and strip back the layers of bullshit that we've been taught, he's not going to mind me mentioning this. Like this guy's particular self-limiting belief was the concept of I'll never be good enough. I'll always be, in his words, soft. And this came from a piece or a former coach in sport. And we look back at these smallest comments, what seemed like nothing all the way back there, and we've realised that you cut an old coach saying you can't be soft, you lot are soft, don't be soft. It might have worked with some people, but the majority would have heard this and they would have always considered themselves as weak. And we first had to go back and eradicate what is essentially a very harmful belief, especially if we look at performance. We won't get into the rest of their life, but especially if we look into performance. And we have to isolate this and begin to change our response to the stimulus, okay? So, change what's happening. So first thing first, we find the foundation, we move on from the foundation, and then we can start layering those. And like, it's the last 2 weeks of the Inner Athlete Performance Camp now, and now is the time we're starting to implement them. And guess what? They're easy. We don't get the kickback. We don't find them difficult if we have that base layer. So if you are in this situation where you're like looking for tools, try this. We need to get introspective first. So think about what could be your limiting beliefs. And there's a bunch of exercises, which is why I'm not going to give you one, because they vary from person to person. But try listening to your self-talk. And if you've got a better half, or maybe an equal half, I'd recommend having a chat with them, because it's very easy to hear someone else's limiting bullshit, but it's difficult to hear your own, because you become indoctrinated, which is why it's become so harmful. And then just to kind of even things out, and and to stop you having the impression that I'm holier than thou and I'm better than you guys, like, let's talk about my personal training. Those of you who've been listening to the podcast or following my work for a while will know that I am fully on board with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I've probably got a competition coming up in March, and I'm loving it. And all last week, I'd turn up to the mats, I'd roll, and I'd come back, and I'd be like, man, I'm just like, I even said to my girlfriend Harriet, I said, you know what, I'm getting fucking good at this. Like, it's happening. Like, I feel really, really good. And all of last week, I was tapping people out, submitting people. It's the art of submission if you don't know what jiu-jitsu is. And I was submitting people all week who were much, much better than me. There were 2 belts up on me, maybe. Definitely 1 belt up with someone that's 2 belts. People that are much more experienced than me. And I was submitting them left, right, and centre, having a really good week. And then just a few hours ago, 4 hours ago from now, I rolled up to the gym, and I was like, okay, sweet. This is it. I'm gonna like, I had the quiet confidence, and I was moving forward. And then as life and training, and especially jiu-jitsu have a way of doing it, like, I just got my ass handed to me today. I had my ass kicked properly. I just couldn't do anything. I felt like I'd never trained jiu-jitsu before, and the issue was that I was so presuming that I was going to do well that it completely limited, and because of that, because I was presuming that I was going well, I was trapped in my head. I was thinking too much. My mind went into overdrive. And this happens with all kinds of sport. I'm sure if you're a CrossFitter, you can feel what that's like. You turn up, you start processing too much. It's like shit. This is too much. And then you're like, the natural reaction is to get frustrated. Luckily, I've been through that loop so many times before that I know how to switch it off. But it's very tempting to do. Very tempting to do indeed. So what I should have been doing is allowing my subconscious and my body to do the work that it's been programmed to do. If I'd gone in there with, and the fact that I hadn't meditated this morning and I was a bit tired probably didn't help. But if I'd gone in there with more of an open mind, a more relaxed mind, I describe it as, imagine you've got a kitten and you're holding the kitten. And this is the kind of focus that you should have, like how tight the focus should be. Like if you completely relax your grip on the kitten, guess what? It's falling to the floor. Luckily on its feet because it's a cat. But if you squeeze it and hold it, guess what? That's a pretty messy situation in your hand. So we should do exactly the same with our focus in training. And when we get there, and our focus and the desire for control as well. If you're trying to control that kitten in exactly the same way, you can't squeeze it too tight. You got to let it relax. So that's my personal challenge. And then the last thing that's really happened, and the biggest success story of this week, is I ran my first Inner Athlete Performance Camp a little over a year ago now. And someone on that camp messaged me today. He's actually in my Mindset RX Academy, which is like a continuation for the Inner Athlete Performance Camp, but that was beside the point. And he just had a moment of reflection, looking at how he was with his kids. And it's phenomenal to see the change in his life. I mean, dropping a ridiculous number of kilos in weight, like regaining his health completely, transforming his relationship with his wife, but just becoming the man he's always desired to be. And this isn't a pitch at all. Well, it kind of does work as a pitch, but unintentionally it works as a pitch what I'm doing. It's more so I can relay his advice. And I was like, what do you think was the difference? Why do you think for you this has worked so well? Like what has happened? And he said, I've just taken it slowly. I didn't expect it to be there. I took one step every single day. And it's back to that cliched, I think it's Lao Tzu, who said initially a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. And it's back to the eating the plane analogy, so it wraps it up quite nicely. One step at a time, one small step. It makes all the difference. Now, that's my selfish, self-obsessed monologue over. So I think that if you enjoyed this show, please feel free to get onto iTunes, leave a 5-star review, share it with your friends, share it on social media, even reach out to me, shoot me a message. But the get on iTunes and leave a 5-star review and a nice little comment, they warm my heart. So with that, guys, I'll say that this is a good time to say I have one space on my next Inner Athlete Performance Camp. And if you want that, all you have to do is find me on social media or shoot me an email at tom@alphamovement.co and just express your interest. Say Inner Athlete Performance Camp, send me some details, and I'll do exactly that. It's probably better to find me on social media, which is facebook.com/tom.foxley, Foxley, or you can find me on Instagram, which is at Tom Foxley. And again, that's TOMFOXLEY. Until the next time, I'm going to leave you now. And enjoy the rest of your week. And I'll see you guys, I always say see you guys. You'll hear from me very soon.